My thesis is that people still want a human agent when they're making an emotional decision, like getting a new job, making a career move, maybe also when buying a house. That's another big emotional decision, or making a big move. If you are getting married or choosing a partner, like there are those uniquely human moments where you want an agent who really gets you, you think has your best interest in mind, and who's going to have the emotional intelligence to actually feel that with you to some degree, like the level of empathy. That goes back to the smart idea. AI is going to be way smarter, or probably already is way smarter IQ, but that EQ piece that a real true agent should have, that's where I see recruiting kind of in any agent type of work, professional services work going. So the identification, some of the process, like note taking on candidate calls or role intakes, it's incredible. So grateful that I don't have to be typing the whole time and trying to act like I'm listening just as well while I'm typing, because I'm not. And scheduling, so grateful for all the ways that it can way faster align calendars and suggest times.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to your next episode of the Freedom of Work podcast. You could be tuning in from Spotify or YouTube, but today we have a little bit of a different topic. So we're going to be diving into how people ops and leaders can find and qualify and support top talent in a world which is constantly changing and reshaping so that people are hiring from career into growth. So the topic that it is going to be the secret currency of top talent. So today I'm joined with Hudson. So yeah, if you want to give the listeners a little bit of an introduction, how you got to where you are, and a little bit more about your company, AlloHire. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks. It's great to be here. I love what Remote First is doing, and specifically the Freedom of Work podcast I've listened to. And I think this is an amazing topic. So honored to get to share my take. I live in Chattanooga, Tennessee, which I am coining as Silicon suburbs. You probably won't hear anyone else say that, but we're a mid-sized city in between Nashville, Tennessee, and Atlanta, Georgia. And this is the galactic headquarters of AlloHire, my boutique recruiting agency. And we are laser focused on helping people first leaders at innovative companies make high impact hires. And so we live in the world of trying to find and qualify and help place top talent. So that's taken us all over the place. And I think that's why this conversation is really meaningful to me as well.
Yeah, I guess like that's at the forefront of most and every HR industry. It's hiring the talent to get it in. And I guess let's start at sort of that talent, that top talent that we're going to be discussing a little bit more today. So I guess from your perspective in terms of AlloHire and how you hire people, is there anything that sort of sets apart these like A players, top talent people from the maybe not so good talent?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. And you hear people ask it all kinds of different ways. What's an A player?
Yeah.
The buzzword that gets thrown around a lot. And so we've worked through different criteria for what that looks like. I think big picture, you could say the ideal team player is someone who is humble, hungry, and smart. Humble meaning that they are confident in who they are enough to focus on other people. Hungry meaning that they're ambitious, they're self-motivated. And then smart is the interesting one, because I think that is much more about EQ than IQ. And so obviously the ability to learn hard skills and execute strategically is a differentiator. But even more so, as you know, being able to be a great teammate and understand the actual culture and chemistry of a team, and add to it and bring value there. So that's the kind of high level piece. And then I think you could get into all kinds of different specifics of what it means for an A player to not just, be a leader on a team, but help actually bring out the leadership capacity in other people as well. That's a lot of what we look for, whether it's an individual contributor role or a C-suite role. That can look very different, right? Kind of what's appropriate, but that's the foundation of it that we look for.
No, yeah, I really like this. I feel like I've personally never come across this before, and I feel like it highlights it in a completely different way because I think initially what people think of is like a CV or that hard experience, what a keyword in a CV. But actually, like, yeah, this sort of hungry, humble, and smart, I really like those sort of key qualities that are shifted maybe from someone who says they do something and someone who has the sort of extra skills to be a bit more smarter, humble, and I guess hungry to then push forward to be a better player in their own game. So yeah, I really like that analogy, and I'll definitely be using that. So thanks.
Well, I split from Patrick Lencioni. He's got a great,
Okay,
a lot
cool.
of great content around the ideal team player. So that's where I would start.
Yeah, nice. I will. Thanks. So then I guess when the first thing when you're hiring these people is that you've got to make sure that the hiring process is consistent throughout because people may be depending on the role, etc. It's sort of it can be hard to make sure there's a consistent and fair hiring process. So how do you sort of think people leaders should balance finding like top talent and making sure that the hiring process is consistent throughout?
Yeah, I would say if you go back to those three characteristics, the humble piece is
Yeah.
the most important foundation. And again, defining humility not as thinking less of yourself, but actually having that confidence that you don't have to think about yourself all the time, and you can actually think about other people. And so that's the thing that I'm always looking for first. And you have to, I think, build trust quickly in any recruiting conversation or interview conversation to where the interviewee doesn't feel like they are having to perform the entire time. It's a very bizarre thing that we take a piece of paper or document that's a job description with some bullet points, and then we take a document that's a CV with some bullet points, and we try to match them. And it's not as much just the actual person to the person and where they're trying to go together. And so I think that's so central is just actually setting the tone where people can be authentic and can bring their full self to the interview. And that should reveal whether someone is an A player, meaning they're a exact fit for that role or not.
Yeah.
But ultimately, what we look for is do they have at least 70% of the hard skills to be able to hit the ground and actually start to make an impact, to start to have a financial ROI within the first 1 to 2 quarters or within the first year, depending on the role. But then are they going to be able to continue to upskill and develop and not have someone else have to hold their hand, but actually own their own development? Because it's the tools and things that we use are changing faster than ever right now, right? Like every 3 to 6 months, you could have a new AI software that rolls out that really changes the workflow. And so I would say that is the biggest thing that you're looking for. And there's all the different strategies for how you can eliminate implicit bias in the interview and screening process. I think we need to look at algorithmic bias just as much as human in terms of even the way that applicant tracking systems are parsing resumes and just looking at keywords. There's a lot there that really matters to even enable that first conversation, human to human.
No, definitely. I think firstly that this sort of comment is about having a CV and matching it to the job description because you can easily tailor your CV to match the job description. Let's be honest here. Like people have done it. They maybe have said they've done something, but they haven't to get through to the interview process. And you maybe get through to the interview process and realize that you didn't even need that. They were just putting that these nice to haves as must haves. So then you're creating a pool of talent that firstly maybe doesn't actually align with what you wanted. And you could have maybe gone all these nice to haves, putting these in the must haves. And it's creating too much of a job description. But then also maybe people are putting these things on their CV. They don't actually match it, but they really want the job. So they're going to put these things in as well. And they might have had done it, maybe a course or a 2-week course on it, or maybe a 1-day course, but they can put it in their CV. So then that means if you're using an AI applicant tracking system, they've scanned that for the perfect keywords and they've got through. but they actually maybe actually don't know what they're doing because they've just added all the keywords, and you're missing out again on that sort of talent that did have all this thing, but maybe didn't quite know how to rightly put it into a CV. I think CV writing alone is a completely new skill that is maybe not even taught to people. It's kind of a hidden topic that no one speaks about, isn't it? CV writing, because no one wants to say they're writing a CV because, oh, sorry, a resume, for the Americans. But yeah, it's like you don't want to say, because if you say that you're writing and you've got a company, oh, you're writing your CV, but obviously people want to keep challenging themselves and moving forward and things like this. And it's like that little hidden thing in the jobs that no one really speaks about enough. Because then there's like not many people teaching how to make sure you're writing a good CV and etc. etc. So sometimes that hiring process, it can be fair maybe from the HR side, but maybe not as fair from the people applying, because they don't actually know how to make themselves a fair A player to those that they actually might be like completely the same level as. So
Absolutely. And I'm saying that even with, the rise of TikTok, some of the Gen Z talent has gotten most of their resume writing advice from 20-second clips, short video on TikTok. Some of it's brilliant. Like there is some really good
yeah,
content and resources out there, some of which that we use with our candidates at AlloHire. But I agree with you. I wish that there was an adulting 101 class that was taught in high school or college or university that, or even outside of that, that just spoke on some of these arts of how to write a resume, how to interview. I'm very passionate about just giving people reps of seeing what that feels
yeah,
like through different avenues, and it's something our team tries to do every week is have a couple conversations with candidates that we don't think we can place, that we don't think are a fit for any of our roles. Sometimes we uncover that they actually are uh, NPC, like a most placeable candidate for one of our roles, or outside of that, just through the discovery. They just didn't know how to articulate it into their resume or their LinkedIn, and that might be that LinkedIn's probably more important right now. That's kind of the shift that we're seeing too, is a lot of people that spent $1,500 getting their resume professionally redone, but didn't convert that to their LinkedIn. And that's where a lot of the conversations are actually being generated.
yeah, absolutely. Especially in like this growing world of tech, remote working, global hiring. It only takes sort of a job to have thousands of applications, and you to maybe click on 20 of the best people, and 10 of them haven't put anything on their LinkedIn, haven't put who they're most recently working for, and haven't maybe added those skills on there. So that's it's that conversion, which is maybe something that 10 years ago people weren't even thinking about. So it might be more of also like a generational thing. 'Cause we've been brought up with in this generation a lot of social media like Facebook, Instagram, but LinkedIn was sort of slotted in there as well. And I think that sort of helps as well if you're into like making sure everything's up to date and things like that. But then it's sort of also missed out a little bit of a generation as well, because some people may not be so into LinkedIn or just have always had a CV and don't know any different, but they're probably the people that actually know how to write a good CV. So but yeah, it's like trying to stand out in a remote world, a global world is more difficult than ever now. So if you can find new ways to stand out by showcasing on LinkedIn, having a work portfolio, making sure all the skills cross match, and you could have like recommendations and things on LinkedIn as well, which definitely helps. But like having the word of mouth out there on your profile is something that's only going to make you stand out more than just a piece of paper that you're shouting about yourself on.
Yeah, we talk a lot about attract, don't chase. And I think the people that get that as, if you're a job seeker and you think more like a marketer, then you're going to, um, in a pleasant way,
Mm,
document your story on LinkedIn, on social media to the right people. Some people don't do any on social media, but they have a quarterly newsletter that's just about their personal life and development that they send to their 100 trusted people. And that is a huge way of continuing to tell their story. But I think attract, don't chase. That's a huge thing that you can leverage social media for, because then A players will always have opportunities coming to them. They will be magnetic. People will know about what they're doing. They'll know the values that they have and the excellence of their work. And then they will always have opportunities. They'll have recruiters like me in their inbox asking them if they're interested in a conversation about something new. And I don't know if you've heard the PIE acronym, but I think that's worth shouting out just related to career advancement. The acronym is PIE, P-I-E. The three different elements are performance, image, and exposure. And when people think about their development, we put such a high emphasis on performance and believing that that will give us a good performance review at the end of the year, and then we'll get an increase in pay or promotion. To be clear, I think performance is absolutely central, just to be a person of integrity, to do what you say you're going to do when you sign that offer and do it the best you can. So that is so important as a person, but it only accounts for about 10% of your likelihood to unlock new opportunity. Image is more like 30%. And so that's where you get into just kind of your profiles, your CV, like how do people perceive you? And then exposure is the remaining 60%. And that's who knows about you. And I think that's where you could even have an amazing CV and profile, but if you're not finding a way to tell your story to the right people, then it's not going to do a ton of good. So that's kind of the framework that I think is helpful, even in the remote landscape, the global landscape. It's been fun to see LinkedIn grow. I think it's over 1 billion users now. We're very close to it.
Yeah, me too.
Exploding all over the place. And now it's fun to have connections in, I don't even know how many countries, but a ton of countries, and to start to really enjoy, we can have a meaningful connection, even if we're in totally different places and time zones and cultures. And I can learn from some of the stuff that you're sharing. I think that's all going to keep expanding the next decade.
Definitely. No, me too. I think, I really like this performance, image, exposure. Yeah.
Yes, nice.
Look at me.
There you go.
No, yes, I really like that. I don't think people really realize that that's so true. You can do something for your performance, but the way other people see it, that can also completely change the outcome as well. And then, definitely LinkedIn in terms of whatever you put on there is you try to be authentic. It just gives you that other little angle to showcase yourself and get maybe your personality a little bit across, especially from a company point of view as well, highlighting your culture, showcasing your employer brand, using it as a platform where then again the employees, once they start their position, they can shout about the company as well. So it's sort of like an ongoing circle about the person themselves, the company page. I feel like those three things are constantly changing and evolving the person, but also evolving the company's culture and employer brand profile and things as well.
I got to say one thing about the employer brand piece, because what I keep noticing is a big gap between careers pages on company websites that often have beautiful pictures and the core values and the EVP, kind of the employer value proposition defined generically. And then the job description, when you click into it, it's got the qualifications, the skills, maybe a paragraph about why it could be an exciting opportunity. There's still such a big gap there in terms of what a day in the life feels like, and really knowing who you're working for and with on your little team, like the leader that's going to guide you, and then the teammates that you're going to link arms with. I think there's a real opportunity there. We've been experimenting with it to create more video content that's just showing hey, we're walking through the actual office, we're having conversations with the actual people, and it's not going to be perfectly scripted and put together. It's going to be just real dialogue, and you're going to get a feel of what a day in the life would be like in this job. Because so often I think some of the best hires have been people that got to shadow the role or do a contract to hire or work on a project in the qualification project to actually see what it's like to do something together and not just talk. so I,
Yeah.
that's a gap that I keep seeing that's a little bit nuanced. If it's fully remote across the world, you can't just fly someone in for a 4-hour on-site. The more that we can find those opportunities to get a couple reps of projects together, I think it brings a lot more alignment and helps avoid the scenario you were talking about earlier, where someone is a great interviewer and gets the job they want, but doesn't really want the job they get because they're either unqualified or they're just not excited about the actual work and direction of the company.
Yeah, that's both points that you don't want a hire to have because the hiring process is tough and it's emotional for not only the person, but like the company and everyone that's interviewing throughout the process because it's taken up a little bit of time in their day and it's it's a big process. So if then you join a company and everything's not aligned in terms of employer brand and culture and everything that was spoken about is just a word on a careers page and it's not actually what the company is all about, then yeah, the retention rate's going to be higher and people are going to be joining a company that's actually not what it says on the tin.
Mhm.
But yeah, this whole company page and alignment with LinkedIn does actually need to increase. But also, I think another point is that from an employee looking for a company's page, why are these sometimes the hardest thing to find? Like,
I mean, say it again for the people in the back. I don't know. I don't know. It drives me nuts when you have to like scroll down and find the teeniest little careers button on the bottom and it's buried in a list of 10 things, or you have to Google it because it's hosted by a
yeah, the
separate
name.
platform and it's
Yeah,
literally not even linked to their website. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
so
But I also feel
siloed.
like I feel like right now may be one of the worst times for applicants in terms of response rates and actually feeling like there's any momentum in the interview process. Like the candidate experience right now, despite all the dialogue about it, feels like it might be um, the worst it's been for applicants. That's not always bad for us recruiters because it means that we're still needed to actually help facilitate. But I think a lot of people have lost confidence in the application process, especially with quick apply,
Yeah,
getting a response.
yeah. I don't even know. Like, I would like to know after this, probably find out some stats about quick apply applications to job position, like security, because like I feel like people say that applying directly on the job web careers page firstly shows that you're like a little bit more interested in the company. You've had a look at their careers page, employer brand, and you've researched some of their blogs, etc. But then you have this opportunity on LinkedIn to have the quick apply option. If it's there and you're not utilizing it, then again, firstly, you're missing out on all of this talent. But then yeah, the applicants are sort of feeling very unwanted. They're trying all of like their CV actually specifically matches this. It might be the best alignment that they've seen, the quick apply options there, but is that even working? Like,
I mean, we do not expect when we're doing job postings to find the best talent in the applications list. There are some amazing people that are on the market right now. That's worth calling out. There's a lot of amazing people that have been impacted by return to office or reductions in force. And so now more than ever, you might actually find someone good who's applying, but just the general sentiment think is people now know you're going to need to take more of the networking approach, reaching out directly to the leader or the HR person. And if that's not clear on the job posting, I think that's a big miss. Like a lot of times, HR or recruiting tries to shield the hiring manager from any outreach from candidates, but
yeah,
I think the best people want to know who they'd be working for and they want a little personality, even in the job description. Like the it can't be written without any input from the hiring manager. I think
yeah,
or that they actually will be involved in that process and show some personality, it goes a really long way.
yeah. And then that's where it does pull back to those like videos about your company, what you do, like those little offsites, if it's a remote company or in-person hybrid work, and what that looks like to actually work for you. But I think that's sort of where people are aiming for. And it's like future of work, of what people want their careers page to be, this ultimate best thing. But there's always going to be a few little things that definitely need changing. And I think people are going to, need to look at, if they do want this A player, top talent, best people, and especially if they're hiring globally or remotely, your net is casted much wider as well. So you need to align those and sort of especially make sure that you are taking into account who these people are, what they are looking for, and that they do want to be seen by the people that are hiring there. But I guess as we are speaking of this sort of future of work, I think that word that we've mentioned before is AI. And I think, especially in this hiring process, it can be utilized, but we want to make sure that we're not making this our sole tool that we are using. We can't just solely focus on AI, and everybody knows that it has to be a human element, etc. But it is starting to appear in the world of recruiting right now. I guess, firstly, looking at this, then where do you see maybe like the most like practical application that can be used a little bit or utilized, maybe like versus the hype of using it to like the full extent?
Hmm. On the candidate side, I love the use case of using a simple tool like ChatGPT to help edit your resume. I think that's a great first step. Um, I think in terms of uh, writing job descriptions, like I said, there's probably, I like the 10-80-10 rule with it. So 10% needs to come kind of the vision and framing from the human, 80% kind of the template can come from AI, and then the last 10%, which is the personality and the kind of the final edits, coming from the human. I think that's the case with a lot of different parts of the recruiting process. AI could be fantastic for the keyword matching. If you're looking at the first function that we talked about, which is kind of resume to job description, LinkedIn profile to job posting. LinkedIn can do a lot of that as well as a human. I think if you're looking at the actual interview and candidate experience, we talk about agentic AI, and maybe it's coming and it's going to be way better than I think. But my thesis is that people still want a human agent when they're making an emotional decision, like getting a new job, making a career move, maybe also when buying a house. That's another big emotional decision, or making a big move. If you are getting married or choosing a partner, like there are those uniquely human moments where you want an agent who really gets you, you think has your best interest in mind, and who's going to have the emotional intelligence to actually feel that with you to some degree, like the level of empathy. That goes back to the smart idea. AI is going to be way smarter, or probably already is way smarter IQ, but that EQ piece that a real true agent should have, um, that's where I see recruiting kind of in any agent type of work, professional services work going. So the identification, some of the process, like note taking on candidate calls or role intakes, it's incredible. So grateful that I don't have to be typing the whole time and trying to act like I'm listening just as well while I'm typing, because I'm not. Um, and scheduling, so grateful for all the ways that it can way faster align calendars and suggest times. Um, there's quick edits to things that can help a job description or resume speak better. So thankful for that. But I still believe that as much as you can break the script, like now that everyone is doing that, there's also an advantage there. And that can be things like audio messages. If I'm trying, a lot of times it's hard to schedule a call for people that are really dynamic and busy, and your inboxes get flooded. But audio messages are cool, like the voice text. That's a really cool in between. You can do it on LinkedIn. It always feels very personal. You hear the person, which thing makes it feel like it's a lot harder to have AI do that. There is software now where people are doing that and they're cloning their voice, but I still generally believe that when I get an audio message, it's that actual person. So that's what I see. I see AI empowering the agent side, the EQ side, and the people that really get that and have empathy and have the best interest of the candidate or the hiring manager in mind are
Yeah.
going to stand out.
No, definitely. I think from your first point as well, from like a candidate side of things, I think, yeah, definitely it can help with the CV side of things. I think that there is definitely an additional good thing there because in terms of like writing and sentence structure and things, like it's good to have a basis of what you physically do because AI can't replicate and know what you're doing in your day-to-day job. But then making sure that it says, oh, you said this, but I think it would be good if you put a measurable stat in here. So like measurable things, this was delivered, I achieved this, percentages and things. And that side of things is good as well. But yeah, as you said, like maybe tailoring it to be a little bit more, if it was more of a technical marketing role, making sure that, oh, do you want to highlight this, this, and this, and having those suggestions rather than making sure that maybe everything is taken on, making sure you are comparing that with the job description, with what you already know. And yeah, just using it as like definitely a little empowering agent for the candidate, but yeah, for this sort of thing as well, making sure it is an emotional process still because it's an emotional for them. I think I've mentioned that before. And but yeah, I think these little things that help the note taking, like we all love this now. It's a genius tool that and I love the little bits at the end. It's like the tasks as well, like to do tasks that get assigned. It's just like so nice and needed that helps the conversation and afterwards you're like, oh yeah, I forgot I was gonna send over that document to them and just these little things, assigning calendars, etc. So yeah, it's definitely like empowering the process rather than like completely taking it over because as we know, it's an emotional process and people want people to be involved.
Yeah, agentic AI should continue to empower human agency and specifically people in professional services and talent acquisition to be agents, to meet the people where they're at and help them navigate the experience better. And I'm really excited about that. We're seeing it, like we talked about, rapid deployment within our applicant tracking systems, within our sourcing tools that's helping us move faster.
Yeah, I guess then these are the things that can help. But do you see sort of any major risks with people like over relying on AI, I guess?
It's not a hot take at all, but the idea that technology could be dumbing us all down. I mean, I rely so much now on, even with Gmail, it's having suggested replies and it's getting better. Um, but still knowing how to really write a good email, knowing how to Grammarly and all the tools are amazing for, basic grammar stuff. But I think there is still a lot of value in spending some time and knowing that we did a. This is so embarrassing, but we did a virtual spelling bee recently for AlloHire as a just a fun employee engagement team building thing. And if I wasn't the worst speller, I was close to it. And so it was good to feel those nerves though. Like one of the words was facetious. And I was yeah, now I know how to spell it and I won't forget. But in that moment, I was like, wow, I feel some nerves. And I'm realizing I've relied on Grammarly for autocorrect the past decade,
Yeah.
spell
No,
these things for me. And that's great, but I still would love to know how to spell it.
yeah. No, I completely get this. I think like in the future of generations is that yes, it is helping us an immense amount to uncover things that maybe we didn't know too much about or to help different processes, but over relying on the tool, I get it. It's literally going to start dumbing down the next generation because I I think we've all been there. We're not even thinking before typing it into an AI tool or a chat GPT tool to uncover a little bit more before you even maybe think, how would I do this? And I think it's becoming, yeah, it's getting a little bit scary, but yeah, it's definitely, it's helping, but also people, we need to make sure that it's not being over reliant. And then especially within people ops and the hiring process, because that's going to completely take away this human element that we were talking about.
My lord, I see not how this pertaineth to the data analyst position.
If thou can extract a sword, thou can extract data. Thunder and badgers! From whence do ye hail, mighty peasant?
Vancouver!
Vancouver? Nay! We cannot employ internationally. The fees, the red tape! It must be put back. Be gone, Canadian!
And I would say play around with it some. Like if in the subject line you put something that is something that AI would not suggest, it might actually have a higher open rate because someone's like, oh, that's different. That's breaking the script. You can still kind of sense that sometimes. And you're like, okay, that wasn't perfect. I think that that was very human. And we appreciate that, I think to some degree. So just continue to learn how to learn. And if creativity often comes out of and innovation comes out of boredom, having moments where you feel a little bit offline and bored. That's it's really, really hard. But I think it's so valuable.
No, definitely, yeah. I really think that's something to keep in mind. I think it is just this over relyingness is something that is the key thing with it, definitely.
One scary thing that I saw recently, I've seen more, is there's there's gonna be more deep fakes, right? And AI avatars that look and sound like people. Whether it's just audio on the call, like we were talking about earlier, or actual video. And so there's been some just fake candidates in interview processes that are looking a lot more convincing. And so that's going to be very interesting to follow, like AI employees. And then also just people, it gives way more potential for people to cheat in the interview process. And it's a funny, cheat's a strong word because we probably all had tests growing up that were open note, open book, and those were great. So just how respectful you could be, not just memorizing. But I've seen it with engineers doing technical assessments or live coding challenges, and they have someone else or AI that's just feeding them the answers. And on one end, the resourcefulness is great, but it gets back to just the integrity thing of, okay, how do we set fair expectations to really define what resources you can use and when?
Yeah, literally, I seen something really similar the other day. It's like they had an interview online based in London, answering all the questions really great, and said, okay, yeah, we'd like to come in and meet the team for like a little afternoon day. And you can see, because I think it was like a 1 day hybrid role, but once she got in the office, couldn't answer any questions, couldn't show anything, even just a general question that someone has said, oh, so did you do this in your last job? Just like a general question. And like, couldn't even answer to that extent. And it showed that everything online was like a fluke. But it's if you expected to go into the office 1 day, you can't hide it all away just by like you can't research that much and then pretend to know everything when you get there. It's just not gonna work. So yeah. Also this AI human thing is a bit crazy. It's like because this I've seen them as well, like AI HR people as well doing the interview process as well. So now, what if there's an AI HR person speaking to an AI human? Are they gonna like battle it out and not be able to finish the conversation because no one knows the right answer?
I think it's going to happen. I really
Yeah.
do. It's going to be bizarre.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I don't have any category for that other than buckle up.
absolutely. Um, okay, so moving on to like this, the A player, the top talent side of things, building your career. I know when we'd spoken previous to this, I was having a little chat about what we wanted to do on this podcast, and you'd mentioned the word vocational capital and sort of building career equity. So, yeah, I'd like to delve into this a little bit more, just speak about this from like a top talent viewpoint. So, yeah, can you explain what this means to you so we can delve into this like a little bit further?
Yeah, vocational capital to me ties back to the idea of a calling and building equity in that calling and pursuing it. And so that is not to say that it's this silver bullet job that's going to solve all your problems. Like a lot of millennials had, I don't know where it started. I know, yeah, there was this big wave of do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. And what that's implying is that work is negative. And so I think that, or that you don't want to work. And I have a totally different perspective on that. To me, work is a good thing. It's a form of even worship. And a definition I got from my grandfather on work that's been helpful for me is work is anything you do that adds value to others. And so don't just define it as a W-2 9 to 5 that you get a paycheck from. And there's been a big positive movement away from that, I think. And the remote revolution the past 5+ years has had a huge impact in that, as people have actually had a chance to slow down and reflect on what's important to them in their life. So that would be my first thing, is redefining work as anything that you can do to add value to others. Some of those things you'll get paid for in money, and some of those will have a huge return on your investment in relationships and experiences and character development. If career is more about character development than job advancement, that puts a totally different perspective, and believing that as you gain skill and build a relationship, you will actually be more valuable in the market and you will probably earn more, right? Like that's a almost inevitable outcome. Um, but yeah, that to me is the foundation. Relationships have the highest ROI, and I'm trying in each role that I take to build character. A lot of that I'll get paid for directly, monetarily, and a lot of
Yeah.
it I won't. And so anyways, when I think about vocational capital, that's what I'm thinking about. How do I create space to reflect on my life, or to help other people reflect on their life? How are they spending their time, talent, and treasure? And you can do that in a variety of ways. You could actually look at your calendar and see how much time you're allocating to each of your things, to your jobs, to your family, to your hobbies, whatever. But actually, like, so few people actually take account of how they're spending their time, and what is giving them life out of that. So that's vocational capital to me. You'll hear the term portfolio life thrown out too, which is kind of looking holistically at what helps people flourish. And I think a job is such a good central part of that. But don't limit work to your working hours and paycheck. Just like don't limit your education to school.
Yeah, no, I really like this about sort of adding value to others. I think that's a good, like, core thing to have at the core of your career, because yeah, you're helping like the well-being of yourself, others, you're learning to help yourself and others. It's going to bring success, so you're building stronger relationships. I think that also comes back to this initial thing that you said about hungry, humble, and smart, because you're being smart, then you're adding value, you're being humble, and you're being hungry to making sure you're adding value. So I think that is a nice little tie back to what you said there that brings into that as well. So
And the
yeah,
real example is, like, even in this conversation, it's not just a transaction to create a podcast. Simon Sinek's book, The Infinite Game, so good on this. Like, how do you just build trust and open the door for collaboration over the next couple decades with people? So just always thinking, it's, yes, we can just create a podcast and it can add a lot of value, but also there's probably 10 other things that could happen over the next decade if we actually are intentional uh, about being authentic and building that partnership. And so I think that's the posture that I would say, if you look at A players and at younger talent in general, they care a lot about the meaning behind the work that they're doing. And they also care a lot about mobility. And so that can look different. That could be advancement, increased earning potential, more of a meritocracy than a bureaucratic structure where you have to hit X seniority to get a 3% raise, or whatever it is. Um, so there's that. There's also mobility, meaning I want to go see the world. I think that is like the most valuable thing, like what you're doing. It's I got to do that last summer. We got to spend a month in France and Italy and Switzerland and go to the Olympics and jump in Lake Geneva and eat a ton of pasta in Italy. And like that, to me, I can't put a price on that experience with my family. And also being able to still run payroll, and talk to my employees and do the different things I need to do to stay on track. Um, so I think the companies that get that, the mobility and the meaning, are going to speak much better to the next generation of talent. And you also have to be okay with the fact that that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to work with you for 10 plus years or 5 plus years, right? Like Reid Hoffman, LinkedIn co-founder, wrote that book, The Alliance. That's another really good one, just for saying like, hey, we are crafting an alliance for this duration to try and accomplish these goals. That might be a year, it might be 5 years. Once we do that, then we can reevaluate and we can say, do we want to re-up? Are you ready to go tackle another problem that means you leave the company or you leave my team within the company? I think that's where the best leaders are going to understand mobility is way bigger than just making their job easier as the manager.
No, definitely. I really like that. I think that's like owning different projects and making sure that, yeah, once you've succeeded in that thing, you've helped others, helped yourself, but then what's your one next move on from that? And it can be, yeah, as big as you said, a big, massive rebrand of something or a big project you've been involved in, but what does that look like moving forward? So yeah, it can have a lot of different meanings, but also it's, yeah, coming back to this thing of value, making sure that you're valued, the work is being valued, and I guess other people are valuing what you put in. So I guess then speaking about this, so how can then leaders, as people are joining roles, moving through their career, help employees to see their career as perhaps equity building and, yeah, not just this paycheck?
I think going back to having frameworks where you can invest as a company in your people's development is critical, and that's looked like a variety of things for us. We just completed an apprenticeship program that we created with Build Within. It's a great program here that the Department of Labor sponsored in the United States, and they've created an amazing curriculum for people to go through a 1-year apprenticeship. So we had one person go through that. It's also looked like bringing in amazing leaders outside of our organization to bring their expertise to our teams. I think it looks like creating margin throughout the week for learning, whether that's industry and position specific or just big picture, and encouraging that and creating some accountability around that. Um, and then fundamentally saying, I'm going to trust each person on my team to own their development, and that will make the right people really shine. The people that are consistently coming and saying, hey, since I'm owning my development, I want to be proactive and come to you and say, I want to learn more about this specific part of the business that maybe I've gotten a little bit of exposure to, but I really want to understand cross-functionally how we're operating. And I think that will help me and the business in X, Y, or Z way, like tying it back to why it's beneficial to the business should also really help accelerate that. So that's what I would say. This is a free one that I believe you've talked about before on the podcast, but shouting your people out on LinkedIn and actually as the leader, documenting their story to some degree and saying, hey, here's what they've accomplished. Here's what we've accomplished together. That will start conversations for them. That will give them that exposure that they need for advancement. It may even mean a competitor finds out about them and reaches out and tries to recruit them away. But I still think it's worth it. I still think it's worth it to create or to help those conversations happen for your people by shouting them out. They will learn a lot in that, and they ultimately, like with the alliance thing, they might only do 2 years with you, but I think what you'll accomplish in those 2 years will be more, and I think that they will be an ally for the next like 20, 30 years, like we talked about, because of that little investment.
Yeah, agree. I think going back to this sort of the creating margins throughout the week of when you're going to engage in like development, I think this is really key because it goes back to sort of seeing your especially again, going back to remote work as well, the day in someone's home is sometimes hard to split it from work and home to start off with, because you're in the same place. If you aren't maybe leaving the house, it's hard to say when all of your American team come on till 8 p.m. at night that you're not maybe then going to do an 8 till 8. And it becomes very hard to define your hours because of these sort of different people coming on. You want to make sure your tasks complete in time because you are wanting to add value and et cetera, and it can become like the employee burnout. So I think having these marginal times, and especially so your days marked out as well, and says like, this is what I'm doing at these times, like please book a call in now and et cetera. And I think that ensures that, as you're saying, like teams and people have room for learning on their own, but yeah, they can reach out and it feels like they're not sort of being burnt out by constantly accepting work of people as well, because I think that can also burn people out, especially with remote work. You want to make sure you feel like you're always active. You want to be constantly available to do things so it doesn't look like you're maybe offline. And I think that constantly onlineness is also going to create burnout. So I think having room to maybe say like there's 20% room in your day to make sure that you're having your own time to think of new things rather than just having 100% of your day reacting to tasks, then that's going to help the individual as well, because they can think, oh, I've got a team check-in then, I've got a workshop then, and I've got this, which is only going to make this little bit of my job better, rather than, every single task that comes through saying yes all the time, which is just going to be overwhelming to you, the calendar, to your job, and etc. So,
Such a good point. Meeting fatigue is real and context switching is hard. And so
yes,
that's what your days look like. I think you need to be proactive in creating boundaries and talking very candidly with your leader and your team. Again, making the case for why it's going to help you have a higher output, short term, but even more so long term, by avoiding burnout. And then I think, even from this, I'm thinking about what we are trying to do and having different people on our team lead lunch and learns where, we've experimented with like sending everyone a DoorDash gift card and saying like, hey, get yourself something, a drink, some food, and then we're going to have one person on the team share some of their expertise. And it's been humbling to realize like, I can learn so much from every person on our team. And it can be a huge team builder, but how do we create the environment where when someone asks you for help on something, you don't feel like you're already at or above capacity to where it's really annoying. And you're like, won't have time for that. Please don't ask me. But you actually have the margin to be like, yeah, let's take 20 minutes and go through this. And we're going to be way better teammates because of it. And I'm going to be able to come and ask you, the reciprocity is going to be there. That all starts with margin and not having burnt out people. And I agree with you that it's really hard with remote. Like you have to be, as a leader, very proactive and checking in with your teams, whether it's one-on-ones or surveys or different things or required time off. Like that's an interesting one in the world of unlimited PTO. Actually checking me like, hey, we have a minimum that you have to take X number of days or X number of days in a row. And I'm actually going to deactivate your email during this time, whatever that is. I think that those leaders that are proactive and not reactive and that are going to continue to stand out.
Yeah, no, I like this little lunch and learn thing, because it's surprising how much you can learn from 20 minutes of someone telling you like a little top tip or a little bit about the day-to-day that they do, and you think, oh, actually I could take that away and completely do that in my own little way, which is going to help me. And I really like that. And I think that's all in the world of global and remote hiring. People maybe do feel a little bit lonely at times, and making sure that when sort of those talent pools are expanded, making sure that if you are wanting to go global, don't expand to a point that people are then feeling lonely, because those two things aren't ever going to work in your company, feeling that they can communicate well with each other because they don't know who does what in what area, and you feel like you can't reach out to them because you've never been introduced to any of the marketing team, never been introduced to anyone in product because they've never had that communication before. And it's like, I think that's where the biggest challenge can be sometimes, because you want to make sure that people are learning from each other, because someone so close to you could have all the knowledge that you just need by one conversation. So I also think these things, like we have a donut chats where the AI chatbot like randomly selects people in our company, and then you get like, it suggests times, like, which is really good, I think, and you get suggested time which you all both have free in your calendar, and you drop it in. It's got little questions you can ask each other, and
That's
uh,
awesome.
yeah, I've spoke
Called
to
donut chats.
yeah, donut chats. Yeah, it's just like a little Slack integration that we have, which is really good. I've spoken to people across the world, Portugal, Egypt, and finding out about their culture, because like I think she'd recently got married. I'm getting married next year, so she was speaking to me about her culture in Egypt, about that, and like the foods it's served, and like it just like you find out so much about a culture because of being a global team, that things like that sometimes get missed. And
Huh.
yeah, I really like that. It gives you little questions and stuff. So
I gotta try that. That's brilliant. I think like the no agenda or no work agenda, like unscheduled calls are really powerful too. If it's a quick check-in. We've been using the question of the day plugin to Slack, and that's brought out some hilarious ones. Like, what's your what's one of these? What's the last movie you watched and what did you think of it? That was one.
yeah, I like
It brought
that.
out some hilarious answers. You're like, oh wow, I had no idea that you were into that kind of movie or whatever. And made us feel like more of a team. So yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I really like that as well. And I think that's moving on to the sort of global angle where it pulls it back to the freedom of work, global hiring, what sort of remote first is all about. So just sort of a question about this sort of the big opportunity and maybe the biggest challenge that you see leaders that are expanding into these talent pools are maybe gonna have, or if you've seen that the struggle was perhaps.
For me, it all clicked in 2022, summer of 2022. My wife and I went on a 10-year wedding anniversary trip through Ireland. And there was a moment our first night we were staying at a castle um, down in Southern Ireland. I'd never stayed here and I was just over the moon about it. And right when we got there, there was a deal that I closed with a candidate in Hawaii, hired by a CEO in London for a company based out of LA. And the company was all about helping people be more optimistic. And I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. I'm working
Yeah.
on my phone at a castle in Southern Ireland. This candidate in Hawaii is on the beach and he's so excited. The CEO's in a house in London. She's so excited. And the owners in LA are excited. And it was like, this is like, this is a movie. That's what it felt like. And so I think since that moment, been like very, very excited to see how to continue to expand and work across different places and cultures. And I love just different people and learning about them. So I'm very excited about that. In terms of the challenges, I think what you just talked about is so real. Like actually understanding the like intercultural intelligence, actually understanding how people in different countries or places operate, what their culture values, and how that can come across and how you cater your communication, how you motivate. Um, and then also just the loneliness thing. I think there is a loneliness epidemic that we have to be so aware of.
Yeah.
We can get so siloed and thinking just individually. Um, it's just being aware and trying to counterbalance that. And that doesn't mean you're going to go meet all of your people in person. But I do think the leaders showing up like physically and making their presence known goes such a long way. And so as much as you can, prioritize that and get that time together and create the moments where you are in the same room and you can break down some of the barriers of like uh, that I think digitally, like you can just still feel the position piece so much, like the hierarchy of authority. And then when you're in person, sometimes it breaks down a lot of that. So those are some of the things that I'm continuing to work on. I told him I'd got a couple people that work for AlloHire in the Philippines, and they're amazing. And they got together for the first time in a while for a call, and it was so fun seeing them together on the call that then I like went into the pod across the room and got into it with my coworker that was here with me just for fun. And then I was saying it like I really would love to go visit them, and it would be such a cool experience outside of just the work piece, just to go fly to the other side of the country. And so I'm constantly trying to be a student of the game and learn what that can look like. And from a business standpoint, how much is wise to invest in that.
No, definitely. I think I love that story about pulling like 4 different people from 4 different time zones. They're all equally as happy because you've done a good job. The candidate's done a good job. He's going to get a good job. It's like all of this emotional, like, empowerment for all the people involved just makes you see how by expanding your talent pools beyond borders, it can be such like an incredible thing for everybody involved. So I really like that. But then, yeah, I like this point also about like having leaders show up and also being in the same room. I do understand that sometimes the breaking the barrier of speaking to someone that maybe is a little bit higher up to just on Slack, which can sometimes feel quite informal. Maybe you think about the message so much that you're like, is this going to be okay to send? But if they were in the same room as you and you just say, how would you be able to send me those presentation slides about this? It'd be so easy and simple because it's just like breaking that down. So yeah, it's crazy. But then yeah, also the sort of cultural finding out how different cultures work and working all that into it as well. It's a big opportunity, but yeah, it can definitely be a challenge because you may not know how in Japan they might have like a period of time which is very urgent and they won't work in this way, but then there might be a different culture that makes sure they have like a 2 week leeway on project time. So things like that need to be balanced and looked at and making sure that everyone's communicating in the best way. And I think that's also why things like project management tools like Jira, Trello boards, and things like that, where you can assign tasks, are really good tools to add into global when you are sort of hiring globally as well. I think these really help.
And a shameless plug for Remo first that you didn't ask for, but I think that all the compliance piece, just how to pay someone, how to hire them across borders, it is complicated and can really slow you down. And so platforms that enable that to move faster and more smoothly are critical. So 100% get the value prop with that. Yeah, and I'm excited to see how that continues to expand.
Yeah, definitely me too. Well, I was going to ask you for like a bit of advice about one if someone was hiring that, but is that your advice? You say you should use remote first.
No, yeah, I would say from I've never scaled a global team at a really fast pace. We've supported companies that have been in that process.
Yeah.
But from my friends who have been global HR leaders across a bunch of different states, it's invaluable. It's priceless to have a platform that allows you to bring on people and pay them. I mean that all of that really matters. So yeah, that's gonna be my piece of advice.
Didn't force you to say that one.
You did it. You did it.
Okay, perfect. So I guess I'm gonna go into like a little rapid fire, and then just a few little closing statements and like tips for people to take away at the end of this. So rapid fire. What is one hiring red flag that you always watch out for?
When someone is unaware that they are the common denominator, and what that looks like is someone always has bad bosses. There are people that are very unlucky and have a couple bad bosses, but I also think as a candidate, you're responsible for pre-qualifying who you work for in the interview process. It's a two-way thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Okay.
I have someone that's had only bad bosses. I quickly am concerned that they are the common denominator.
Okay. I like it. I like it a lot. Okay, perfect. So what is the most overrated interview question?
I always love it when candidates ask what success looks like and leaves it open-ended enough to where you could make it just in that role or kind of big picture. So that's one that I've appreciated. And also just the personal question, like what does success look like for you as well, as the interviewer, the leader? Like it can tie in, why are you here, where are you going, and you can get a lot of helpful data from that.
Yeah. Also, I guess while we're on this topic, have you ever heard of like one of the worst interview questions you've ever?
My goodness, there's so many bad ones that they're out there. I literally got asked when I got into recruiting by this like massive brand to sell me a pin. Like I was that, it was like the movie scene, and they said, sell me this pin. Um, Maybe there's some value in that. I don't like those kind of gotcha questions.
Yeah. What is there was an interview question about something like, would you rather battle something like 1,000 ducks or what
I
is
don't know, there've been so many. I actually did enjoy the dialogue around if 100 humans could be a
yeah,
silverback gorilla.
would you rather fight a horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses? That was what someone said when I first worked in my first company, which was like a global recruitment company. One of the people said that that was their interview question. That was their final question. I was like, what did you say? He was like, well, obviously a horse-sized duck.
Obviously, that's the right answer.
Okay, cool. And then yeah, I think we spoke about this in terms of like LinkedIn, CVs, the crossover of that. So resumes. The future of resumes slash CVs. Do you think they're here to stay or dead in 5 years? Maybe 10 years, I guess.
I do think they're here to stay, um, but I would say put more of an emphasis on telling your story through digital content, and that doesn't mean you're a thought leader that has a big podcast. It could be that you um, post a 15-second clip or text post on LinkedIn twice a month, but do prioritize that. And then as you do, when conversations start, get it offline and actually like have those one-on-one conversations. Um, I don't think they're going anywhere, but I think, yeah, we're going to continue to realize how shallow they are. And
Yeah.
a lot of this stuff was, I think, going back to like Industrial Revolution assembly lines. So much of even the 40-hour work week, like that's a whole other tangent, but so much of the structures we have are from 100 years ago, kind of the work that catered best to. So they're deeply ingrained habits, but I think we're pretty quickly shifting.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think in terms of what I was thinking about closing, I think we've definitely covered like this mindset shift, and especially with CVs, LinkedIn's, etc. It's like it's not just all on a piece of paper. There's a little bit more to it, definitely. And the sort of you've spoken about the development and how to support the A players to make them stay and thrive and etc. But I guess just like one little point of what I think would be a good little final thing in terms of the hiring process. If there's anything that you could or you think would be a good thing to redesign one part of the hiring process tomorrow, what would you change first?
I love the idea of shadowing, and that can be virtual or in person, but I'm very passionate about trying to convince companies to give candidates the opportunity to shadow. It's not always possible on either side, but if you can go experience a day in the life that's not a formulaic, structured interview, I think that allows for both sides to assess alignment in a way that interviews don't. That would be my number one thing, and I'm working on that and figuring out kind of how you can break down that barrier more. Going down to like college students, university, like you could say, I want to be an HR professional and have no idea what that actually feels like today. If you went and you shadowed HR professionals at a large, small, and medium-sized company, you would have so much more perspective than if you took 3 classes on it.
Yeah.
That's I think that's a really big thing that we could fix in the process.
Yeah. That's only going to help the company and the employee to make sure they're both aligned at the final hurdle. So yeah, and it would help people get that little bit more experience. You could maybe even additional this, I feel like I could go off with a tangent about this, but anyway, just the final point is that I think it would also help if you could then put like that you did a day shadowing in a company, put that on your CV. If you don't get the final position, you got to the final stage and did like a shadowing at a really big company, say Google, for example. But if that then can be put on your CV, people can see that. So it could be a good little additional thing for being candidates to help stand out in this market at the moment.
Absolutely. But one other thing that I got to say is just that it's been so helpful to me, but recognizing that people are emotional, more emotional than we think. And when you are negotiating offers, it is compensation, salary, bonus, equity, all of the benefits. It's emotional because it gets personal. And so recognizing that, and the thing that's always helpful to me is if you're making an offer, view it as you're proposing to someone, right? Like you're holding up a ring or whatever that symbol is. And the hope is that it's not about the ring, right? Like they're not saying yes because of the ring, but also you did your homework to know that it was a ring they'd be excited about. So that you don't have that super awkward moment of I'm down on one knee and you're like looking at me and glancing over at the ring. So I think just doing your homework of viewing it that way, like, hey, I'm inviting you to come be a part of this team. And like, I want to be a servant leader in that. That posture is really good. And then also as a recruiter or internal hiring, TA, professional hiring manager, just make sure you do your homework and understand that compensation requirements change. Like so often we see a candidate and they say, this would be great. And then as they're going through the interview process, they have another offer from a different company or their current employer hears about it and counter offers, or they're going to have to move and they've assessed the cost of living and it's actually 10% higher. So just continue that dialogue throughout to make sure you know what a win-win is when you present that final offer. And you don't get in that horrible moment where you're down on a knee and then you're negotiating the joy out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because also they have to consider that the employee could have someone 3 hours later about to propose to them about a completely different.
That's the crazy part about it. Yeah, I'm going to use that. That's a good add-in.
So yeah, thank you so much for this conversation. I definitely think we could have spoke about this entire topic. It's definitely one to delve into, but I think touching on this sort of A-player, top talent, how to secure it, but also how to keep it, this like hunger, this smart, all these sort of keywords we pulled throughout this has really got me and hopefully the listeners thinking about this process is more than just a process of getting the job. There's a lot more to it, and people want to make sure that they're adding value into their career, not just doing it for the sake of accepting it and for the sake of being proposed to, because it's a lot more than that.
That's the beginning. That's the beginning. Believe that work is a good thing and that relationships have the highest return on investment. And I think most of the rest will take care of itself.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you so much for joining me today and sharing all this insight. It's been really, really great. I could definitely have kept speaking, but hopefully listeners and yourself have got some good little snippets and take pieces out of this. So yeah, thank you so much again. And thanks to the listeners. This will be released soon. So thanks again.
My pleasure. Thanks, Leah.
Thank you. Bye.